Okay, so Unit 4, Unit 5, is all about different types of bonds. So our goal at the end of this lesson is to be able to identify and differentiate different types of bonds. So what I mean by identify and differentiate is we're going to be able to tell the difference between one type of bond and another, and we're going to do it by looking at common traits that those bonds have. So there's a lot of reasons why it's important to know the different types of bonds. The types of bonds determine things like solubility. So why is it that salt dissolves in water? That's what solubility means. It also explains things like alloys. So lots of times we don't use pure metals in things like jewelry or even construction. Wait, I can spell jewelry. Jewelry. Yes, I think so. Jewelry, construction, or even electronics. We don't use pure metals. We use these things called alloys that are mixtures of metals, and it has to do with the type of bonding that occurs. It even explains things like reactivity. So reactivity is kind of like, when we think about whether things are toxic or not, whether things are easily combustible, or whether or not things are inert, meaning they don't react at all and they're very safe to be around. All of these different things are explained by the types of bonds that form between atoms. So I've been saying this word bonds, and I may not have been very clear about what I mean by that. So atoms bond together. And what I mean by that when I say that they're bonding is they're sticking together. So you could almost say that bond means stick together. So there's a lot of different types of bonds out there. So we're going to look at an example of our first type. So I've got this blue particle and this green particle, and I'm going to label what elements they are. This blue one is sodium, and this green one is chlorine, NaCl, aka this is your good old-fashioned table salt. This is the stuff that makes your french fries taste really good. This is the stuff that's usually bad for blood pressure when you get older. Well, even now, bad for blood pressure. You don't want too much salt, but it's also an electrolyte, so it's also very valuable in different instances. Salt is held together by what's called an ionic bond. So this is our first type of bond. We're going to talk about what an ionic bond is in just a second. The next type of bond, our next example, is this funny looking particle I've got right here. This funny looking particle is water. So water is two hydrogens, so hydrogen, hydrogen, connected to an oxygen. This is held together by a covalent bond. And then the last example I've got with these orange atoms right here. All of these orange atoms are the element iron. Fe, Fe, Fe. So iron is in the metal. What occurs between a bunch of iron atoms is called metallic bonding. And once again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what these three bonds are and what makes them different from one another. But what we just need to know is that all of these atoms are sticking together in different ways. And each different way that they stick together is a different type of bond. And for our purposes, there are only three types. So this was just a quick introduction video. I'm going to move on to our next video, which goes more in depth on ionic bonds.